Welcome to the 6 Seconds webinar. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you're joining us. We are good afternoon here. Today's webinar, 6 Seconds webinar about emotional intelligence for today's organization, is happening here, and it's my pleasure to also welcome the guests, Lorenzo Fariselli and 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 Apostolidis, that I will introduce in a minute a little bit more. My name is Maria Olsson. I am the EQ Corporate Manager for 6 Seconds Europe, and my pleasure to be part of this webinar today. As you might be joining for the first time a 6 Seconds webinar, I would like to give you a short introduction about 6 Seconds, as you might not be familiar with 6 Seconds. Otherwise, it's always good to have a refresh, because it's many years already that we have developed also further. So 6 Seconds is the world's first and largest emotional intelligence network with over 10,000 certified experts, facilitators, and coaches in over actually 150 countries in the meantime. Today, the webinar is from 6 Seconds EQBiz, and EQBiz is the division of 6 Seconds dedicated to the corporate business sector. And since our creation in 1997, we have developed in close contact with companies a system that is capable to responding to key corporate needs through the emotional intelligence paradigm, in collaboration of business experts and established institutional partnerships. As kind of a pioneer in that field of emotional intelligence, we have supported leaders and teams in over 25 countries, actually more than 27 different languages, and we help them to increase productivity and effectiveness in the workplace that goes hand in hand with the workplace well-being, in order to create positive change at all levels of society. More about 6 Seconds you can read up as well, then I will show you the link at the end of the webinar. But about today, what we're talking in this webinar, what you can take away hopefully after this webinar, is that we will explore the key concept of emotional intelligence and its impact on organizational dynamics. And we will learn how to develop and apply these competencies to improve leadership, collaboration, and workplace well-being. So we want to give you a hands-on, also practical and theoretical approach and insight into that. As I mentioned already, it's my pleasure to have 2 guests on the webinar today. And I first would like to introduce our guest, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 Apostolidis. Thank you, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, for your time being here today with us.
Thank you very much, Maria. It's my pleasure. Good day, everyone, and thanks also to Lorenzo for this opportunity. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. Let me give the audience a bit background about you, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 is a Chief Sales Officer at 𝐷𝑖𝑟𝑒𝑐𝑡𝑜𝑟, an experienced international sales director with over 18 years of experience. He's a forward-thinking business leader with expertise in team management, strategic business development, product management, programs, projects, and client portfolios. I think just to mention a few, right, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜?
And a few.
And in 2022, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 also joined the board of Assoknowledge, the Italian Association for Education and Knowledge of Confindustria, Innovative and Technological Services. I hope I pronounce all the Italian words correctly.
Perfect.
And 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 also delivered seminars at the University of Bologna, focusing on international business strategies, and holds a master's degree in electronic engineering. Thank you, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Joining your expertise with and experience with us today here. And then also Lorenzo Fariselli. Lorenzo, thank you for your time today to run this webinar together.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm really curious about this webinar. I can't wait to start.
Excellent. And we start in a couple of minutes, and I will ask you the first question. But before, for the audience as well, a bit about your background, Lorenzo. Lorenzo is the network leader of 6 Seconds Europe and also board member of 6 Seconds. He's behavioral sciences specialist with a degree in psychology and a master's in business strategy. Also, you might have read about Lorenzo already. He's co-author of the 6 Seconds Emotional Intelligence Assessments and the vital signs tools to measure the key drivers of performance. And he's also the author of several articles and white papers about the impact of emotions on performance. But let's jump in. I'm also curious. I'm more curious to hear about you as well here. And I want to start with you, Lorenzo, with that question. What is the scenario that organizations are facing today?
Well, thank you, Maria, and thank you again, Arrigo, to be here today. And maybe the most diplomatic answer is challenging. The scenario is challenging, and when I say challenging is because I can't say anything else with a come. So the diplomacy maybe is the better way to follow. Today we are in the industry 5.0, and it represents the 5th industrial revolution, and it is a phase of evolution of the production system based on the human and machine integration. And I don't know if you agree, but when I think about an integration, I imagine 2 equivalent parts, 2 balanced parts. So let's analyze for a moment these 2 parts. I would say that the machine is ready. I see artificial intelligence looking very good. I see artificial intelligence everywhere. And someone recently measured the IQ of ChatGPT. And the result was 155. Consider that Einstein IQ was 160. So the feedback I get and we get from the machine is good. Now the question is, what about the human being? The industry is at the version 5.0. And at which version of our software are we? How far have we evolved as human beings? I think all of us know the answer. Today, we are in a great difficulty. People in companies are suffering with higher levels of stress, burnout. Today, the word is called BANI, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible. And we are constantly looking for anchors, but there aren't any. Everything is in motion. So in this context, do we have the right tools to navigate this emotional complexity? This is the first question. Gallup is, I want to share some data. Gallup is an international agency of opinion polls. And they divided the employees in 3 categories. The first one is thriving at work, as you can see in the slide. Engaged people, quiet quitters, so employees who continue to put in the minimum amount of effort to keep their job, and the loud quitters. Pay attention about that, because we are talking about the people who do things that are openly opposite to the company's direction. Well, Gallup, and this is the last click, Maria, of this slide, found that only 23% of employees are engaged, while 18% are actively disengaged. And this picture, this situation, represents an annual cost on our economy worldwide of almost $9 trillion. So we are seeing in this slide money burning. What's the scenario? The scenario is challenging for that reason. And the situation doesn't get any better looking at the European data on engagement, as you can see in the next slide, because the engagement rate in Europe is much lower, from 23% at the global level to 13%. But the disengaged rate is only 3% less. And many more, and we are talking about 72%, are maybe still waiting for a clear signal of care from the organization. It looks like we know that people drive performance, but we forget that emotion drive people. And this is a quote that we used to use in this situation to lead the message that emotion are the most important part of human being. So the scenario is challenging, and it is clear that we need to focus our attention on a better management of the emotional dynamics inside the organization. The last concept that I would like to share is that we need to use our emotional intelligence in a professional way and not only in a natural way. I'm saying this because we all have emotional intelligence. We all manage emotional intelligence skills. Sometimes we recognize our emotions, sometimes we navigate our emotion even if the situation is really hard. Sometimes we show empathy to colleagues. Sometimes, this is the problem. We need more consistency. We need to consider emotional intelligence like a managerial skill to use and practice in a professional way daily. Short answer, challenging.
Short answer, challenging. Thank you, Lorenzo, for this very interesting insight into the current challenging situation organizations are facing. And I think it doesn't come as a big surprise for many also joining that webinar today. And I really, what stuck in my mind, how you defined that evolution of the human and the machine integration. And I think it clearly shows us as well, for the human integration and the machine integration, we do need hard skills, technical skills, hard skills, more rational, and we need the more human skills, the softer skills, and both of these together is that integration. What you said, the better management of emotional dynamics in organization. And also, like you said, it needs to have a strategic approach. And that's why I want to underline, and also for all the other listeners, to explain again what actually is emotional intelligence. How do we define emotional intelligence? It's not being emotional. I think over time people understand that, but still it's not emotional, it's not being soft, it's not just empathy. Emotional intelligence is really to integrate it's the capacity to integrate thinking and feeling for sustainable, intentional decision-making. And in short, it's being smarter with feelings. And it's not being emotional and getting stuck. We do know that thoughts and emotions and feelings give us so important data, and all is data. And I would like to also now explain our 6 seconds model on how this is managed in a also strategic way, which it's a model, but you see, it's a circle. And the interesting thing about that circle is also that it's not just a rigid model, it's a process at the same time. That model by 6 seconds has been developed to create an actionable process to integrate emotional intelligence on a daily basis. And it has these 3 pursuits. You see these 3 colors. And when we look at the know yourself, the blue section, it's actually all about the questions, what am I feeling? It's about creating awareness, clearly seeing what you feel and do. Because as I said, emotions are data, depending. And these competencies allow us to accurately collect that information. The next phase, the choose yourself. I always like to mention it's also red like the traffic light, because when we have the awareness, the red like the traffic light is all about what's the intention. In the choose yourself, about the question how. What is our intention, how we are reacting? What options do we have? Do we have the option to react in a situation like we've done in the past and staying on autopilot? Or do we stop and pause at the traffic light, red, and consider our options and do what we are meant to do and not acting on autopilot? So proactively responding. And the third area is to give yourself the question, what really matters to me? This is about direction, doing it for a reason. And that competencies in there are 8 competencies embedded. And these competencies help us really to put vision and mission into action, and that it's connected to the purpose with full integrity. So what am I feeling? What options do I have? And what is it, what really matters? And that's not just a model, it's really a process. And developing this emotional intelligence process really enhances our ability to understand and manage emotional dynamics at the workplace as well. And then that is even more relevant once we have developed that skill, and the relevance of the skill over time, of course, depends on the scenario. We need to connect it to the scenario in very brief. Also, the audience we have videos, can explain that webinar on our, that model on our website as well. So, but knowing what Lorenzo has explained about the current situation, the challenge, having a bit more insight about EQAs and the model, I would like to hear now from 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. Really, that big question I think a lot of the audience wants to hear. How can emotional intelligence be effectively implemented in organizations? And considering what we heard from so far, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, what is the impact on the scenario on a day-to-day? What's the impact on a day-to-day? No, let me stop, sorry. I go one step back. I come to this back, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, pause. What we heard from Lorenzo on a more statistical base, how are you experiencing this on a day-to-day basis? What's the scenario and what are the challenges related to these numbers from your point of view?
Okay, so thank you, Maria, and again, good day, everybody. There is a key point here that needs to be addressed. What Lorenzo mentioned, how the whole discussion about emotional intelligence has to do with companies. let's try to be, let's say, very effective, even brutal in analyzing the fact the disengagement of the people and the effect is measurable. What the Gallup report say that we are losing 9 trillion of US dollar just for the disengagement. I believe that that is, let's say, the key element that we need to take into account when we move this discussion from, let's say, an academical perspective, a theoretical perspective, down to the ground. If you do want to see effective and change into the companies, we need to take that into account. Now, something that I would like to share also with our audience, on which I would like to kindly ask to provide a question and inputs, but we need to take into account is what does it mean to be engaged? And this is something on which every one of us can relate. Let's think about having a discussion with your manager, with the people of your company. Usually, and this is very, very diffuse, probably you even notice it that I'm doing it right now. I'm taking notes during the meeting. Something that no one usually do is to take notes about his or her emotions. Why? Because, a matter of fact, we may forget details, we may forget numbers, but the emotions are engraved on our own skin so deeply that we don't need to take note of that. And this is such a powerful element in every conversation that we are having inside the company that needs to be taken into account for the effectiveness itself of the company. So this is, let's say, a very practical approach and a very, let's say, down to the ground consideration regarding the fact that we are driven not only by the IQ, the intelligence that we use on math, but we are driven also from the information, the intelligence that comes from our emotions. So now, the key element from an organization is how to use effectively a model that helps to work out the emotional intelligence in order to be more effective, whatever it is the business the company is doing. And another element that we mentioned earlier is the effect that emotion have on us in helping us to take the right decisions. And this is a question for the audience, but to how many of us happen that even entering a very complex situation or a complex negotiation with a lot of variables, numbers, our gut feeling told us from the very beginning how the negotiation would end. On this side, on this element, I believe that emotion are a kind of a second brain that can help us in taking the right decision. So, Maria, did I answer to your question?
Absolutely, absolutely, Enrico. Thank you so much. Really interesting, and I love your practical examples. That I think it's exactly what often these small things make a big difference. And I actually, Enrico, also added the questions in the chat for our audience, and we are curious to hear from you. What does it mean for you to be engaged, and how are you considering your emotions during meetings?
Okay.
Right? We would love to hear more. Please feel free to use the chat and add that, and we're happy to bring that also into that conversation if you have a question to Enrico on that question maybe as well. Thank you, Enrico. Yeah.
What does it mean to be engaged? If I may, this is a key element on which I would like to provide an immediate answer. To be engaged, it means that you love what you do and you see the sense, the purpose, the value in what you are doing. You are not just let's say, making numbers or doing a task. You do see the big picture, and you see that you are bring your own value to the company and to the society you are living in. So being engaged, it means to have the purpose. My friend Lorenzo used to call it a noble goal, or with a similar word. I remember it very well. But that gives the sense of why you are getting up early in the morning or you're taking a last call in the evening. It's all about the sense that you put behind what you are doing.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. And considering what 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 just shared also in these examples with us, Lorenzo, a question for you on this. From your experience, how can we best apply this concept of also considering the emotional side facing this challenge in organizations? Oh, you're muted, Lorenzo.
Okay. I want only underline the answer of Arianna and Elisabetta about your question. So to be engaged is feeling and choosing to express my best self.
Sorry.
Feeling and choosing. So value our feelings and then choose and use the power of these feelings to choose our best version. And Elisabetta maybe underline what 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 said, be part of something. Yeah. In order to see a bigger picture. Yeah, thank you, Arianna and Elisabetta. Well, answering to your question, maybe it's too easy. What I'm going to say. But my answer is that we can apply this concept in the organization if we give people the right tools to create an organizational culture able to address the problem we are experiencing today. And the problem, as we saw in the data that I shared before, and the problem that we are experiencing today are emotional challenges. My grandfather had a wonderful calligraphy, and I remember him writing, and I love this memory. But today we work with computers. And that skill is no longer relevant. So considering the Gallup research and the data about stress, mental health, and so on, and the impact on costs, I think we need to acquire and practice competencies able to address the emotional problems. And companies have a relevant role in this. And the role is to choose training focused on deepness. Training that teach you how to use Excel or any CRM or even an artificial intelligence or technical training in general are essential, are okay. But they are not the answer that people consider relevant today. And on the other side, unfortunately, just having fun is not the answer. So we can do a lot of paddle matches, boat trips, big event to surprise employees, trying to respond to the need of energy, engagement, motivation. But it's only a part of the answer. Joshua Friedman told me some time ago that we as human beings are a bit like batteries. Our emotions are the two poles, and the energy is activated if both these poles are considered. So we need to take care of pleasant and unpleasant emotions in a balanced way. And it means practice emotional intelligence. Last consideration about that, and this consideration, maybe it's for leaders, but maybe for everyone, because we can be leader as parent, as whatever. A Gartner survey revealed that employees' willingness to support change inside the organization collapsed from 74% in 2016 to just 43% in 2022. So from 74% to 43%. And I completely agree with 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. This data show us that we have a problem of why. And practically speaking, organizations need to focus the attention on a key dimension called purpose, because people don't want to be treated as gears of the industrial machine. And they need to see the impact of their work on society. And we have maybe two different ways to work. The first one is that the company, starting from their values, should find and share its purpose, a true purpose. And the second point is that the company shouldn't try to sell its purpose to the employee, like happened to the vision many years ago. But help people find their own purpose. It means give people the chance to work on their noble goal, and it is a competence of the 6 Seconds IQ model. And I strongly believe that if a person finds his or her noble goal, he or she can be a leader, role modeling for a new organizational culture. Again, and then I stop. People today want to be treated as human. People today want to be treated as a human being, as contributors for something bigger. And companies can value this, giving people the right tools to face this emotional complexity.
Mm.
It's not only theory, it's the practical side. It's a matter of culture.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you also for bringing up that key crucial word of purpose. When we look at these shocking numbers of dropping from commitment to the number of 2022, 43%, I think it's actually just makes you speechless. And at the same time, it is connecting the dots and sees where we are standing now, and the urge and urgency and that urgent need to not to lose the touch with these people and not to lose the touch with the people. And like you said, focusing on deeper levels that brings to purpose and EQ, as considering the AI generation we're in, also important that we don't lose touch with people, because the human touch can't be replaced by AI. Also, I think considering that dimension. But having theory and still practical examples so far, but I'm really curious now, because 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜 has experienced that and practiced that and implemented that, to hear from 𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, what happens when EQ becomes a structured part of an organization?
Okay.
What have you experienced? What happens? What could you share?
So from that perspective, Maria, when EQ, when emotional intelligence is a part of the organization, the most reliable answer, the most truthful answer is that you see something magical. You see things happen that you would never believe, like from a business perspective, a business that get closer, realize people that are proactive in what they do, people that are willing to make, let's say, the extra mile for the purpose, the noble goal that they see in what they are doing. You see also the connection within the team, and that is an exceptional things. One of the key points that this is going to happen only when it starts from above. So leaders need to give the example and to lead on that first. That is a real an important point. Now, from let's say a most practical perspective, we do have here in the chat an incredible question that I believe really needs to be answered.
Should I later or now?
Please,
I thought the practical word practical, I thought you might bring that up.
No, it's okay. But the question is how to convince leaders and general managers without business within business to shift their focus or rebalance toward emotional intelligence. The key element is that at the end of the day, whoever is proposing to address courses on emotional intelligence or any kind of approach is going to find himself to talk with the CFO, for instance, or with anyone is going to pay for that. We need to face this if we are going to talk about emotional intelligence in the business. The key point here is that we can prove with data, with studies, with practical examples that this investment is going to be reflected at the end of the year in real changement for the company. One of the other, let's say, studies that I shared with Lorenzo in the past was proving that companies that use emotional intelligence within are 22 times more effective rather than companies that doesn't focus on that. So from, if you want to bring this from, let's say, a discussion about very high level down to the finance point of view, matter of fact, there is a link, there is a logic. So what we are discussing here today is deeply linked with how a company can really be effective. And I believe that this is something that really can be shared with any general manager, any CFO who is willing to listen to that.
Thank you, Rigo, for answering here. Luke, hi, Luke, actually, very nice to see you on the webinar. Luke's question in the chat. If you have an additional question, Luke, please feel free to use the chat again. So coming back to what you shared before, Rigo, what would you say are kind of a practical process that makes it also possible? In brief, I mean, the CEO, I think I love that, and we know it's very realistic, but what would you, if somebody now is here in the audience and wants to hear kind of, where do I start? What is a process that I can start to go back to my colleagues or to my CEO and share with them?
So there are a few, let's say, key elements. I mean, if you need to have that discussion within your company, you need to be factual. So you need to base your request or focus on emotional intelligence on data that we have already discussed. One example that came into my mind is that Lorenzo mentioned the fact that we always see into the organization the need of do technical courses. And a matter of fact, as let's say a capex, as an investment into a part of a site of a construction company, if you build new capacity, let's say if you build a new division that that paint, for instance, a car, the car that get in that department get out of that painted more beautiful and with a added value. Matter of fact, that is measurable into a finance model. From the emotional point of view, from what we can learn out of emotional intelligence practice within the companies, you can even see a higher return of the investment because of the result that gives that comes out of a team that is more engaged, that is, let's say, more focused. And also there is another aspect. If you can deal with your emotion in a proper way, if you can, and that is one of the other questions that was here in the chat, if you can take into account the emotions that are on the other side of the table, the people that you are discussing with, the results can be really, really effective. Even from a business perspective, you can find, let's say, agreement and synergies within the organization instead of silos that are discussing one to each other. You can build a team across the organization based on trust, not based only on leadership and hierarchy. And that is even more effective. So I believe that from this perspective, we do have, let's say, very clear elements that give us the information that we need in order to take the decision to move toward emotional intelligence embracement. Of course, you need tools. You need tools that helps, for instance, to exchange feedback in a formal and informal way. You need an organization that is open to have a discussion about that. Something that happened to me in the past, and I would like to know if one of our, let's say, listener is related, is to happen in a situation where at the beginning of the meeting, someone says, okay, let's leave the emotion out of that and be practical. How would you feel if someone start with that? First question. And the second one is that if you start down to that path, let's say leaving the emotion out of that and be practical, matter of fact, you are fighting two battles at the same time. An inner one, because you are trying to push it down what you feel, and an external one. And probably in this way, everything will be more complicated. Did I answer to your question, Maria?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Enrico. Once again, I like the practical examples that you mentioned that you experienced, and emotions are contagious. I can sense how you experienced that transformation, if I may call it, in these organizations that you're working with and that you implemented that. We see here also on that slide, these kind of 4 steps. I don't know if Arrigo or Lorenzo, you want to explain a bit how you experience that, that 4 steps process working with organizations?
Lorenzo, if you please, you first.
Okay. I would say that the first step is really important, is essential, because we need a role model. And my perception is that we need courageous people to implement a new culture. Sometimes rational data, so a case study, is not the answer. Well, I want to show you that if you do this, you will gain that. Okay, but and my organization is different. Okay, is different. So my point is that we can provide data, we can provide a case study, but we have also to find the right people, courageous people that wants to implement something new. They could be the HR director, but also a manager or a CEO. It doesn't matter, but the courage is the most essential dimension that people has to have. And we need these leaders to be for being the role models. The other step is build capacity, because when we are talking about emotional intelligence, we are talking about a competence, a new competence that we need to acquire and practice. We are unpacking the emotional side, and we are creating value for the system we are in. So for all the organization, for our team. And it means build capacity. It means that we can implement a culture of coaching to spread emotional intelligence. And so there is the role model, and then there are many other people with the same skills. The third step is to embed emotional intelligence. And this is, from my side, really important, because it's not only to practice emotional intelligence as individual, but embed emotional intelligence inside the organization means that we need to create an integration between emotional intelligence and the talent management process, or the hiring process, or the way that we manage a meeting. Everything should be done with emotional intelligence. And this concept will shape a new culture. And shaping a new culture means that we need to create a moment of alignment, moment to talk about us as a human being, and not only as a professional inside the organization.
Lorenzo, thank you for this explanation. And if I summarize and recap what you said in a couple of words, what sounds to me, it's really to underline the importance that EQ is not a training. It's not a tick the box exercise. It's not a nice to have. It's a strategic approach that is connected already with existing programs and strategies, and needs to be embedded in order to also strengthen the existing approaches in the organization in order to reach that added value. It's not a standalone. It needs to be embedded, right?
Thank you. Yes.
𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜.
Absolutely. From my point of view, a couple of words about that. So there is a first fact that we need to take into account when we talk about emotional intelligence. We are not talking about something outside us or something that is nice to have. We are talking about what we are as a human being. So that is for sure a central topic. When we said in this chart, leaders go first. Anyone that is listening to us that is related somehow to business organizations knows that certain things, certain decision on strategy, on the activity, on the market needs to be top down. In this case, even the human touch that you mentioned earlier can be top down and can really make the difference. If, as I need to bring my own experience, if I do, in the case that I do have my manager that is very capable of leading me with emotional intelligence, give me the right spirit to deal with my team with the same kind of attention to the emotion, with the same kind of kindness, with the same delicate approach. And that is something that really is passed from one to another. So when we talk to someone in the proper way, taking into account emotional intelligence, is is if we are passing on something. There is a kind of creating ripples within a lake. If you throw a stone, you are creating something. If you throw something else, you are creating something else. And that is a fact. We are passing it on. So I believe that this is something really important. But this needs to be also embedded into the system itself of the company. So for instance, in our case, and I can talk about what I know, our evaluation of the performance is based also on the soft skills, heavily on the soft skills. And that is a clear message also for the people. I mean, we appreciate how you behave, how you interact with the rest of the team, your support, and that is a great part of the evaluation. So that means that your company is giving you a clear indication regarding the fact that how you behave, which are your soft skills, how you interact with others is taken into account. And that needs to be real, practical in the system. Otherwise, we are talking about nice to have, we are not dragging in, let's say, into the shape of the culture of the company. So I believe that is really a key point to be taken into account.
Well, thank you, Arrigo. Again, this practical example with what it means to embed it, right? Is like also even considering it in the survey. On the year, if it's a yearly appraisal or whatever surveys your organization is using and what approach, that it's not just something on a paper. And clearly it's contagious, and it starts with ourselves, and it's this ripple effect, ideally, right?
Exactly.
That it's role modeled and not just put over, doesn't work. It's, yeah.
Exactly. And of course, there is always space for improvement, but in certain cases, I do believe that things are going in the right direction. Because as we said earlier, change is necessary. Probably is the only constant that we see in business. And so we need to find a way to embrace change and to be effective at the same way and to protect ourselves and the team.
As we know, it's never ending. It's a continuous change and learning, also with EQ. But
exactly.
It's, to find the way to embrace it in an EQ way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arrigo, for these really valuable insights from your day-to-day application and experience, and seeing this transformation live, also sharing that with us today. And thank you so much, Lorenzo. Yes, for all your insights and sharing, and very interesting data that brings up a lot of questions to these challenges. I think also for the audience listening here to us as well. So the big question is that I want to ask here as well, the audience listening now to us or listening later to the recording, what's your EQ strategy? And I even want to take it a step further, considering we're almost in October. You might be also in charge for a budget for 2025. What is your investment that you consider into the EQ strategy for you and your organization? Please use the chat. Really curious to see Lorenzo or Arrigo the chat, because my chat just disappeared. Would love to hear more if you have something to share, what you might have done already in terms of EQ strategy or planning to do for this.
Luke wrote, we need to find a way to overwin problem solution now. So I think there is a sense of urgency on that. And I think the point of EQ strategy is the main point, because in the organization and in the organizations, I hear the people strategy. So how can we put the people in the center of the organization? how can we value people? But the point is that are these people ready to be in that role? If we put people in the center, do they have the right competencies in this moment to interpret the role in the most balanced way? And so this question is essential because we are talking about your EQ strategy. Competencies, crucial competencies for people.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. There is another point, Maria, if I may, since we're running out of time, that probably another thing that it worth to ask to our listener and to provide their input into the chat. What is their strategy and which are the challenges that they are finding on their way when they do want to implement something new on the emotional intelligence? I believe that that could give us a great input regarding which are, let's say, the barrier, the resistance that we find in the market in order to promote a more emotional intelligence approach.
Great, great. What are the challenges they're facing?
Exactly.
Please use please use the chat for that as well. Change KPIs. That's what they love. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes, we need different KPIs. Yes.
We need different KPIs. Absolutely. Then we see something more here. No, not yet. But we still have a couple of minutes till the hour, right? As we use the hour. Yeah. Use the chat, please. We are still here. In the meantime, also want to share here with you how you can reach out to us. You find us on also social media, our website, or Lorenzo or my email address in case you have questions coming up. We also pass it on to @𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, if you give us the permission, @𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜. If I could imagine there's also coming in a couple of things for you from the practical experience side, from your background. Feel free to reach out or find out more or share what triggered you maybe during that webinar. And we are very much looking forward to hearing from you. And once again, @𝑅𝑒𝑔𝑜, so much thank you for your time to be here. And thank you, Lorenzo. That was really fun doing this webinar together. And I hope that the audience could goes away with a lot of more insights and curiosity.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Lorenzo. It has been really a pleasure. Really a pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. 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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.